16-year-old Parker Schnabel worked with his 91-year-old grandfather at the Big Nugget mine, just across the creek from Porcupine.
It all began with a teenager's wild bet and $100,000 of his own money. Years later, that bet paid off in a massive way when Parker Schnabel uncovered a $14 million pay streak in Alaska. Just as his crew hit the biggest cleanup in their history, he made a strange call. Lock it all down. The brave move. As the workable ground in the Yukon began to vanish, the future loomed large for Parker Schnabel. He knew that to stay on top, he had to think bigger, and for him, bigger meant Alaska. The story of his incredible rise in the world of gold mining is already the stuff of legend, but it all started with an audacious gamble. At just 16 years old, he made the monumental decision to step into the massive boots of his grandfather, the revered John Schnabel, and take control of the family's mining operation in the harsh, unforgiving Alaskan wilderness.
You know, if there's two things my grandpa loves, it's his family and taking on a challenge.
This was no simple summer job. It was a life-altering plunge into a high-stakes world. Parker immediately signaled his seriousness by investing $100,000 of his own money into a new piece of ground, a claim he desperately hoped was teeming with gold. What many people forget is the immense crushing pressure on his young shoulders. He wasn't just searching for a few flakes. He was aiming for a colossal target in the famed Klondike region, a place that has broken countless miners before him.
Parker is once again mining ground leased from landlord Tony Beats.
To achieve this, he knew he needed a radical plan. In a move that puzzled many seasoned miners, he decided to split his relatively inexperienced crew into two distinct teams. This decision would fundamentally change their entire operational strategy. The first group was dubbed the Wolf Cut Crew. Their mission was exploratory and grueling. They were tasked with digging 30 feet down through untouched virgin soil. Their excavators would scrape away the frozen layers of permafrost, a process meant to expose the ground to the weak Alaskan sun, allowing it to thaw enough for the wash plant. In the Yukon, every miner is in a race against the sun. If the ground remains frozen, the gold stays locked within it. The Wolf Cut Crew was hunting for massive quantities of high-grade gold.
His 1,000-ounce gold.
1,029.
Oh my gosh!
Wow!
But they understood it would be a slow, expensive process with no immediate payoff. The weight of his entire future rested on two separate teams digging in the dirt, but no one could have predicted which crew would crack first under the crushing pressure. With the strategy set, the two crews operated in separate worlds, each fighting its own unique battle against the Alaskan landscape. On one side of the claim, the Wolf Cut Crew's daily existence was a slow, grinding war against the earth itself. Day after relentless day, their giant excavators clawed at the frozen dirt, while bulldozers shoved mountains of rock and soil. The sheer monotony and brutal physical labor of this work is something rarely captured on screen. They were not finding any gold. They were simply moving endless tons of earth, fueled only by the hope that somewhere 30 feet below, a golden treasure lay waiting. Behind the scenes, the mood of this crew was a tense mixture of optimism and creeping dread.
Parker tiptoes his 63-ton D10 dozer along the brink.
Every 24-hour cycle that passed without a sign of color was another day the operation plunged deeper into debt, burning through thousands of dollars in fuel alone. Meanwhile, on the other side of the claim, the Drift Cut Crew felt an entirely different kind of heat. Led by Parker's trusted foremen, Mitch and Tyson, their job was the complete opposite of the Wolf Cut's patient excavation. They couldn't afford to wait. They were responsible for paying the bills for the entire operation, and they needed to find a lot of gold, fast. They carefully prospected every inch of their designated area, their eyes constantly scanning for the smallest sign, a tiny speck in the dirt, a promising layer of gravel that could lead to a major deposit. In mining, you can be mere feet from a fortune and be completely unaware. They would dig a test trench and find nothing, then shift the excavator 10 feet to the left and suddenly uncover a pocket of gold. It was a high-stress game of geological hide-and-seek. The tension across the whole operation was becoming unbearable. Parker was a constant presence, driving back and forth between the two sites.
Parker returns home.
Parker! Great to see you. You too.
To find out if he has hit.
Checking on progress, pushing his teams, and agonizing over the colossal costs of fuel, parts, and wages. How a teenager managed this level of stress is a question that still boggles the mind. He wasn't just a miner, he was the CEO of a complex, cash-hungry enterprise. Just as the fuel bills piled high and morale began to sink, a shout from the Wolfcut site echoed across the claim, a sound that would change everything. Right when things seemed most dire, the breakthrough arrived with stunning force. After weeks of relentless digging, the Wolfcut crew finally reached the layer of earth they had been dreaming of. The pay dirt was rich. When they ran their first test through a small sluice, the box lit up with a thick carpet of gold. The very soil that had been their biggest hope had finally surrendered its hidden wealth. Parker's audacious belief in his long-term plan was finally, spectacularly, being rewarded. As if scripted for maximum drama, just as the celebration began at the Wolfcut, the Driftcut crew also struck gold. Their meticulous and persistent searching had paid off. They had located a deposit substantial enough to fund the entire operation for the foreseeable future. Suddenly, Parker's crazy plan to split his crews made perfect sense. One team had secured their future, and the other was bankrolling their present. It was a masterstroke of strategy. The news of his double success ripped through the Klondike like a wildfire. Everyone in the mining community began to realize that Parker Schnabel was no longer just a kid with a famous last name. He had become a true force of nature in the gold mining world, a brilliant strategist who had outmaneuvered the unforgiving Alaskan wilderness. The gamble had paid off, and the stage was now set for an even bigger push. But as gold began to pour in, they discovered that finding it was only half the battle. Getting it out of the ground would bring a whole new mechanical nightmare of monsters and machines. With gold finally flowing from both operations, Parker's mind shifted into high gear. Now an experienced prospector, he focused his efforts on a massive gold deposit he believed could make everyone on his crew incredibly wealthy. However, in the world of gold mining, as soon as one problem is solved, another one inevitably appears. The truth no one saw coming was that their own machinery was about to become their biggest adversary. Parker's old gold processing machine, known as a wash plant, was simply not reliable enough for the task at hand. He had been using a rented machine to keep the operation afloat, but his new crew leader, a man named Mark, despised using rented gear. Rented equipment is often old, poorly maintained, and prone to breakdowns. To make matters worse, Parker's most valuable worker, Mitch, was off-site at the time, leaving the crew without their best mechanic. Their plan was to assemble their own massive wash plant, the mighty Big Red, as quickly as humanly possible.
And that means getting Wash Plant Big Red back in the game.
This is where things got wild. The crew had to move the colossal machine into position and assemble it piece by painstaking piece. They carefully maneuvered a gigantic metal tube, the tailings conveyor, into the perfect spot. Getting this alignment right was absolutely critical. It took an incredible amount of effort, using heavy chains and multiple excavators, to wrestle the enormous piece of steel into place. After all their hard work, the machine was finally ready. This is when Parker made a shocking decision that revealed just how high the stakes were. He ordered a complete lockdown of the area where they had found the massive deposit. He was closing off all access to his mine. This was a strategic move, designed to protect his find from prying eyes and allow his crew to focus 100% on extracting the gold without any distractions. 2 years after that initial setup, Parker's Alaskan mine site was a full-blown industrial operation. They had cleared nearly a mile of debris and were poised to see just how much gold they could pull. Their ambitious goal was to recover an ounce of gold for every single hour the machines ran. However, just as things seemed to be going smoothly, they hit a peculiar snag. Their weighing scale was a standard model, not the special one calibrated for troy ounces, the unit of measurement for precious metals. It was a minor hiccup, but they proceeded with their first weigh-in anyway. They came in just short of their target with 13.8 ounces of gold, which was still worth over $23,000. For the first hour of mining, it was a fantastic result and a powerful sign of the immense riches that were about to be unleashed.
How do you make that transition, from mining in one place to the next?
The success of that first weigh-in was just the beginning. The crew fell into a rhythm, and the gold began to pile up at an astonishing rate. What nobody watching from home can truly grasp is the sheer scale of the gold they were unearthing. During one cleanup, they had 3 pans so full of gleaming gold that it looked almost unreal. After one incredible day of mining, they weighed in a stunning 253.8 ounces. At over $820,000 a day, they were no longer just mining gold. They were practically printing money. By this point in the season, their total had reached an unbelievable $7,381,100. Parker, known for being generous with his crew, decided to reward their hard work in a big way.
Parker Schnabel ist 27 und bei der Goldsuche unermüdlich.
In a move that stunned everyone, he gifted each member of his team a surprise bonus of $122,000 in raw gold. It was a clear message that he viewed their success as a shared victory. But just as things seemed to have reached a perfect peak, disaster struck again. Rocks began to clog their machinery. A young new worker named Evan was the first to spot the problem. They were forced to shut down Big Red again and again to clear out the stubborn jams. Mitch, now back in charge, quickly diagnosed the issue. A screen inside Big Red was torn, which was allowing large rocks to slip through and cause blockages. This was a huge problem. The constant jams were not only slowing them down, but also potentially causing them to lose gold every time the machine got clogged. Mitch had to climb up and single-handedly replace the giant, heavy screen. A tough, physically demanding job. After they finally fixed it, it was back to mining. But the challenges kept coming. They soon discovered that rocks were also obstructing the water flow in the sluice boxes, preventing the gold from settling properly. Once again, the broken screen was the culprit. Once Big Red was finally repaired for good, it was time to unleash its full potential. The first cleanup after the fix yielded 51.6 ounces of gold, worth $90,000. It was a great start, but then came the results from their other wash plant, a machine they called Slucifer. This machine produced an amazing 210 ounces. The most thrilling moment was yet to come. As the crew gathered around to weigh the gold from Slucifer's big cleanout, the numbers on the scale kept climbing, finally stopping at an astonishing 360.5 ounces. That was almost $600,000 worth of gold from their second-best machine. That's when the reality of their situation hit them. With this much gold coming out of the ground, they were sitting on a fortune beyond their wildest dreams. This is the moment that led to Parker's final decisive action. With cleanups this large and the ground proving to be unbelievably rich, he made the call to shut down all access to his mine for good. He was likely sitting on one of the richest pay streaks of his entire career, and he needed to protect it from rival miners or anyone else who might want a piece of the action. With the gates locked and the gold piling up, the official story was one of incredible success. But beyond the cameras, whispers and wild theories began to swirl, suggesting a much more complicated truth. Watching Parker Schnabel and his team extract over $14 million worth of gold from the earth is an incredible story of triumph over adversity.
I started my life here, and my goal is to see if there's a lot better ground out there that we could be mining.
Yet, with a mega-hit TV show like Gold Rush, there are always whispers from dedicated fans who wonder what's really happening when the cameras aren't rolling. Across the internet, fan forums and discussion groups analyze every scene, leading to some huge questions and wild conspiracy theories about the reality of the show. One of the most persistent theories is something fans call the producer's gold. The drama of a crew struggling to hit a season goal is a massive part of the show's appeal. This theory suggests that if a crew is just shy of their dramatic target by the final episode, the producers might subtly intervene to help them cross the finish line. The pressure from the television network to deliver a big, satisfying finale is immense. Fans speculate that a small amount of gold could be added to a final weigh-in to boost the numbers and create a more thrilling conclusion. It's a scandalous suggestion, but some viewers genuinely wonder if every single flake of gold shown on the scales truly came from that season's mining efforts. Parker shut the gates on millions in gold. But what exactly was he trying to keep out? Was it simply rival miners? Or was he trying to bury his secrets? Let us know in the comments, smash that like, and subscribe for more.